there were interest meetings, there were worship nights. I feel like we had every night you could have, with every name you could have. And, we were still living in Jacksonville at the time, preparing to move. And there was a team on the ground here. And I remember in our preparation, we were trying to just ask the right questions. What do we do? What do we pray for? Like, what are we really believing for? And I remember one day, to the T, I was writing down a to-do list and was really writing down a prayer list. And I remember that every prayer that we had been praying could have been summed up in a few things. And all of our prayers were really one of three things. We were praying for the people of the city. We were praying that the people in South Florida would find hope, that they would find, the God who created them, just so much that people would know God, that they'd find freedom. That was something that they would figure out why they were born, and then that they would make a difference for eternity. But then another thing, we had prayed for people. We prayed for specific things for people. But another thing that came to us that was new for me was this whole idea that we were praying for the land. I remember I wrote down FTL on a piece of paper, and for the land just jumped out to me. It was, it leaped into my spirit, and I was like, that's a little weird. It sounds like Cleveland. LeBron James is there. What does that mean for Fort Lauderdale? And we started thinking of the scripture in Jeremiah where it says that as the city prospers, you too will prosper. And it even precedes saying, seek the prosperity of the city. Don't seek the prosperity of your church. Don't seek the prosperity of your ministry. Don't even seek the prosperity of your family. Seek the prosperity of your city. And as it goes, you will go. Yeah. And I remember talking with people here that South Florida is a place that most people use as a platform, where it's a stepping stone. But we love the thought of what if we could be people who are truly for the city and for the land. Yeah. And our thought was, what if we could come and make a difference here in the land and not allow it to be a platform to serve us, but we could be a platform to serve it. Yeah. And it was just something we drove, we ran with. We plowed that ground that we're for the land. Why do we serve? Because we're for the land. Why do we give? Because we're for the land. And really at the end of the day, when Celebration Church is here, and maybe 200 years when Celebration Church is when we're no longer a part of it, I think our prayer is that the city and the people would be better because we're here. Yeah. That's why we're here. We're here to make a city better. We're here to make people better. And then I think the last thing we prayed is that we make a kingdom better. We're a part of a bigger kingdom than just a local church. Yeah. And we want to build the kingdom. And the kingdom is eternal. It's the thing that if we build, we will always have rewards that go with us, And I just love thinking through three simple things that we're going to be for people, we're going to be for the land, and we're going to be for the kingdom of God. And that's why we're here.
I remember the day Pastor Stovall asked us to move to Fort Lauderdale. Like it was yesterday. He pulled us in his office one Sunday after church on my birthday weekend.
Your birthday month.
My birthday month. And he asked us to really pray and to think about moving to Fort Lauderdale again. Yeah,
it was crazy. When he asked us, we were actually in a season, I don't know if you remember, it was during prayer and fasting. Yeah. So in August, and what ideal timing for Pastor Stovall to ask us during prayer and fasting. And I remember the first couple days throughout that first week, we were praying, and, we had already felt like that being a lead pastor wasn't for us, and that it was maybe not, what God had called us to do. And during the first week, I think I was leaning that way. Yeah. We had already kind of had in our heart that we were going to say no again. And I remember one day, it was either a Friday or a Saturday, we were at the beach, and you were turned over, you were on my left. I remember it vividly. And you turned over to say something. I can tell you'd been chewing on something. That's always dangerous. And you turned over, and I remember you just said a statement to me that kind of changed, our journey. And I don't remember how you asked it, but I remember you saying, Layton, I'm behind you no matter what we do, but what legacy do we want to leave for our family? This is an opportunity we could do. It's scary. It's maybe going to be hard. But do, and you used the story of Peter getting out of the boat. You said, do you want to be one of the 11 that sat in the boat, or do you want to get out? And it may not be easy, and it may not even work. But what do you want to do? Do you want to step out in faith? And I remember us making a decision that day. I knew that when you said that, at that moment I hated you for saying that. But I remember you saying that and I knew in my mind, we're going to do this. And success isn't going to be an outcome. It's going to be an obedience. Yeah. We're just going to follow God, and we're going to say yes. And we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what the journey's going to be. And we had no idea if the journey would be full of success, full of influence, full of whatever. But we did know it would be a journey of faith, and we were excited for that.
Yeah.
So maybe let's head there and then we can do the rest of it. 1, 2, 3, down. Rob, you're gonna Sunday.
So I definitely remember the moment that Hannah asked me to move, and it was a crazy moment just because a few months prior I was having a conversation with a friend, because I always thought that I would live my life at Celebration Jacksonville, and that was it for me. But we were having a conversation, and I was telling her that I felt planted, and we were all serving in youth together. And so I was like, if Pastor Layton and Hannah ever moved, I feel like I would go with them and help them with their ministry, just because I so admired you. I love both of you, and your ministry just impacted my life in such a great way. We had such a wonderful relationship. I enjoyed serving under you in the youth. And so I'm thinking like years down the line, because at that time we were all settled. Yeah. And so 2 months later, Hannah approaches me, and I'm like, what is going on right now? And she's like, I don't want to answer. I just want you to pray about it. I'm like, well, thank God, because I don't even know. And so that night it was a Wednesday, we were at youth service that night, and I didn't hear anything you preached that night. Like the whole time I was just thinking about.
So it happens.
Yeah, seriously.
Man, when you asked me to move down to Fort Lauderdale, I'll tell you honestly, I thought you were crazy. And I thought this whole thing was crazy. And but
Nothing's changed.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember clearly that day I wanted to just impulsively say yes, we're going, but I didn't even process it. And we've never moved out of our parents' home before. I think we were 22 at the time.
Jeez.
And all these things, and we just thought, man, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But what I realize now, and what we really realized in the moment, was because it's crazy, we want to do it.
Yeah.
And we felt so much that, not only did we love you guys so much, we wanted to help you with your ministry and grow the church together and do life together, like what Marcella was saying. But also, it was just a great opportunity for us to really say, God, we trust you.
Yeah.
We don't know how it's going to work. We don't know how money's going to work. How we haven't even asked our parents if we can get married yet. Like all these things. We didn't even plan our wedding. I didn't even propose yet. All these things. But we knew that if we committed to doing this crazy thing, God's going to open up doors, and it's going to take only God to make this happen.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to start off our marriage, our life together, with just having crazy faith.
Man, I think what made it not a sacrifice to us to be here every weekend was because we loved it. We were firm believers in Celebration Fort Lauderdale, and every chance we could get to be down here, even though we weren't living here yet, we took every opportunity,
Yeah.
and
We didn't want to miss anything.
we didn't want to miss anything. We
Yeah.
wanted to be a part of everything. So to us, it wasn't even a sacrifice. It was like an honor.
It was an
you know?
honor to
So
do it. I mean, if we were to do it over again, we'd do
we
it
would
100
still do
times.
it. Yeah.
100 times.
Second.
Yeah.
My journey with joining Celebration was also very unexpected. Isaac and I were dating at the time, and we were kind of like in a transitional point, and we had attended one of the pre-launch days. It was actually, I think it was right after you guys were announced as the lead pastors, and we had visited a few months before, and I remember saying, like, man, there's just something about Celebration Church, like I gotta be here.
Yeah.
But that was like in April, and then November came around, and we came, and you guys were announced, and so we're sitting there like in Rev Live or next door or wherever it was, in this like bar essentially. It doesn't look like a church. Like, it's like nothing is really put together.
The early days.
But I remember sitting there, and I was in a really broken place, and really like searching for a home. We randomly got a text actually from Pastor Layton. You texted Isaac and said something about like we'd like to meet up for coffee, and you guys just saw something in us, and something that I didn't think would really ever exist again, and
Wow.
I didn't know what it would look like. I mean, we lived an hour and a half away, but I knew in that moment you said, you know, you can say yes to being part of this now, or you can say yes in 6 years from now, but the door is always open. And just the freedom in that, I think, spoke a lot. It filled a void to what we were, I think, needing and searching for,
Yeah.
and just wanting to be a part of it, whatever it looked like.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a church, a very traditional Haitian church. I mean, I was in church like Monday, Sunday, Wednesday, like, you know, like the typical Christian thing, you're in church all the time. And then when I went out to college, I decided I didn't want to go to a traditional Haitian church. I went to like an American church. And then just on and off in church in my adult years. And then I felt like the church was either absent in the work of social justice or complacent in bad behavior, right? Or harmful behavior, right? Especially to marginalized groups. And so I just became angry. And I just stopped looking for a church, or stopped attending and questioning my faith. Despite being away from church, I always felt like something was missing, because faith had always been such a big part of like my life and my identity. So, you know, I love social media. So I just happened to see like an ad for Celebration. And then I went one Sunday, and that was it. I like fell in love because everyone's super nice. When I was going to church prior to my hiatus, I never was involved in church. I was the person who showed up on Sunday, listened to the message, praise and worship, and then went home. Like being involved in groups, I can't remember who I said it to, but I specifically said, I don't do the group thing at church. I just come in for the message, and then I go home. And so, yeah, that's why I think I'm always gonna champion Celebration. You know, like who would have thought that Celebration would have been involved in helping me create a documentary on Black men and mental health? Like, that's powerful. For a church to be involved, for your pastor to come and pray for the men who were in the video, for church members to donate their time, their skills, their gifts, just because another church member said, hey, I'm concerned about Black men and suicide, can you help me? And then the answer was a resounding yes. If anyone knows me, I am unapologetically Black, Haitian. I'm in the front row shouting down if there's a good message, if I hear a good message, whether or not you grew up in the church, whether you're atheist, whether you're agnostic, whatever your life is, wherever you're from, your cultural background, your ethnic background, your economic status, I think everyone belongs here.
My name is Brooks, and I am originally from California, born in Riverside, grew up in San Diego, came from a single mother of 4 boys, and me and my brothers were actually taken into foster care when I was 8 years old. So from 8 till about 13, I was in different foster homes and in foster care. At a young age, I had if I look back, I had the isms of being an addict, and I think it comes from having both addict parents. So I have 3 small children. My oldest is 8 years old. His name is also Brooks. We call him Brooksy. Then we have a daughter. Her name is London. She is 6 years old. And then my youngest son is Nixon, who is 4 years old. And they are definitely the best gift that God has given to me besides my wife. For me, it all started into really getting a relationship with God was when we first lost our children, when my 2 oldest were taken away from me. The hardships that they went through with them having to experience me fighting with their mother crying at night because of my decisions. So what my life looks like now since I've come back to God and come back to going to church and of working a program, it's first off, it's just so much better. My relationship with my kids is absolutely amazing. My son Nixon, no matter what, that kid, I've always been his hero, even when I was not of hero status. My relationship with my oldest son, who tells me he loves me now and hugs me, and my daughter, who just adores me and just allows me to be her dad. And I am now, for the most part, a good superhero to my son, Nixon. My wife is not crying anymore. She's happy. Things can be stressful at times. Life isn't perfect. But at the same time, we both put God first and we put our faith in God. And everything comes together, no matter how tough it is.
My name is Alexa. I was raised in South Florida. I lived here most all my life. My walk with God, I think I was probably willing to walk anywhere else first. For my story, faith was really the last house on the block. And that really, I think, came, started to feel that in high school, through my adolescence, early 20s. And during that time, I was just riddled with this emptiness and this hollowness that I didn't have reason for, in my upbringing or in my home situation, wouldn't merit that, but I couldn't shake it. There was just something that wanted to live, though I didn't think so. And some kind of, power or motivation or little fire that wouldn't let me give it in. So I got there. So I started to listen to the Christian radio and play it on my way in, and play it on my headphones during the day, and just kind of had this positive message running through my head to counter the voices that I was telling myself. And the message from worship music I began to hear the message from worship music louder than my own thoughts. the ones that weren't serving me. And those began to sink in. And they started to feel true to me. I started to think I could practice what I was hearing. At the time, it didn't occur to me that those lyrics that I was hearing from the Christian radio were the words from the Bible and were the words from God. And I didn't know that, but they were working in my life. That did create kind of a new turmoil, because on one hand, I found a place where I may find joy, where I may find community and friendship that I'd always been hungry for, and connection. The first thing I heard sitting down at celebration was that no matter what I had been through and what I came in with, that at celebration I was family, that I'm welcome there. I've found connections that I didn't think I was capable or worthy of having, truly. And the difference now is that I get to do that standing shoulder to shoulder with the family I've gained at celebration. And really no words can express that gratitude. And I feel so fortunate that even with everything I've come in with, celebration wants me to be there, to be here, to serve with you, to eat with you, to be a part of this community and to call celebration home. And that my story has a home at Celebration Church.